to Kalila.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Town Hall with the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston. My name is Kalela Perot, and I'll be your moderator. I'm sure many of you are likely joining us for the first time, so I'll go over quickly what you can expect. Earlier this evening, several Nova Scotians received an invitation to join this town hall by phone. Those who did receive this call and have chosen to participate are going to have their opportunity to ask the Premier directly a question. If you are one of those people participating by phone and you would like to ask a question, now is the time to hit *3 to be added to the queue. We are broadcasting live on the Nova Scotia Government Facebook page and YouTube channel, so for those of you joining but didn't get a call, you can still ask your questions. All you have to do is send an email to nstownhall@novascotia.ca. Well, that just about covers it. We're ready to get started. We'll have about an hour together and get to as many questions as we can. So just a reminder, those of you who did receive the call, now is the time to hit *3 to be added to the queue. But before we get to questions, I believe the Premier has a few remarks to share.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Looking forward to talking with you all tonight and taking some questions from you. So if you want to ask me a question tonight, just press *3. We'll try to get through as many as we can. I really enjoy the questions and the dialogue back and forth. These town halls are a great way for me to hear directly from you what's on your mind, what's happening in your communities, and also for me to give you a little bit of an update on things that I think matter to you and that are important to you. It's been a busy couple of weeks for us on the healthcare file. We've been focused on getting more doctors to Nova Scotia. Last week, we announced the International Medical Graduate Assessment Clinic. This is an incredible initiative. It came from the College of Physicians, and we're happy to make this a reality. We've all heard the stories of Nova Scotians, a friend, a neighbor, a family member who went away to medical school and faced nearly insurmountable challenges in coming back home to work here in Nova Scotia. So they didn't come back. And instead, now they're practicing medicine somewhere else, in another country or in another jurisdiction. Or we've heard the story of somebody who was a doctor in another country and does live here, but is not practicing medicine, is doing some other job because the licensing process was just out of reach for them. This has been a major problem for years and years and years. So we've now addressed that problem. This clinic will provide a very practical path for internationally trained physicians to become licensed to practice here in Nova Scotia on a quicker basis. This new path is not only a first in Canada, it's a first in North America. There are healthcare professionals who want to make Nova Scotia home. They're looking for a practical path to do what they do best, provide care to patients, and they want to do it here in Nova Scotia. These clinics are that path, and it will start small, but it will quickly scale up. When it's fully up and running, we could see as many as 45 internationally trained physicians licensed here in Nova Scotia every single year, and all with returns of service to stay here in Nova Scotia. And you can see how in the medium to long term, between this assessment clinic and 45 new doctors a year, plus the new medical school at Cape Breton University, which will graduate 30 new doctors a year. These two innovative pathways could see Nova Scotia with 75 new doctors a year. We're looking to the long term, to the future. And just to put the 45 new doctors a year from the assessment clinic into perspective, since 2019, 59 practice-ready assessments have been completed in Nova Scotia, with 39 licenses being issued. In 2019, 4 licenses. In 2020, 4 licenses. 2021, 8 licenses. 2022, 14 licenses. 2023, 6 licenses. 2024, 3 licenses just so far. So imagine when those numbers are 45 a year. In 1 year, under this new assessment clinic, we would issue more licenses than have been issued over 5 years. So this is a really big step. And the important thing to know is under the former program, the timeline from application to license could be as long as 18 months. That was a big deterrent for people, doctors moving to Nova Scotia. The Nova Scotia International Medical Graduate Assessment Centre can complete these assessments in 12 weeks or less, not 18 months, 12 weeks. All this means that more opportunity for doctors here in Nova Scotia and it will go a long way to getting all Nova Scotians the access to the care they need, to getting all Nova Scotians a primary care provider. So this was a really important initiative, something we just announced last week. It's something that will help attract and retain doctors here. We know we need to recruit more. We know we need to retain doctors. On the retention side, earlier today, just today, we announced a physician retirement fund for doctors that are here in Nova Scotia. Retirement benefits will be based on years of continuous service in Nova Scotia. It will look at whether they're seeing patients full-time or part-time, and it will just give doctors just a little bit more incentive to remain here in Nova Scotia. So to be eligible, they must provide either direct patient care or clinical services to patients. So these are important initiatives. They're just part of a suite of initiatives that we've put out there. I'm happy to answer any questions about these initiatives or anything else that's on your mind tonight. So once again, if you have a question, just press *3, and hopefully we can have a little chat. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
Thank you very much, Premier. Our first question is going to be from Dorothy in Bear River. Dorothy has a question about improvements to healthcare in the Valley. Dorothy, you can go ahead with your question.
Yes, I would like to know why, especially on holidays, they close all at once from Middleton. Only Yarmouth and Kentville are left open. And for a heart patient like me, that's a big distance. And if the doctors didn't all stop at once, if they left even a few doctors in each place instead of closing everything all the way in between, it would give us more of a chance.
Hi, Dorothy. Certainly, thank you for that. And Bear River, what a beautiful part of the province. Look, this is all to do with having enough human resources to keep everything open and fully staffed. You're asking a question basically about the scheduling, and this is a part of the discussion around quality of life for healthcare professionals that we have in this province here. So we need more so we can staff things more properly. There are more doctors today than there were in 2021. There's a lot more nurses today than there were in 2021. We're also adding, allowing pharmacists to do more of what they do. Their physician's assistants class will be graduating soon. So we're looking across the spectrum, but you're absolutely right. There's still issues. I think the amount of closure times, the statistics would say that it's decreasing. I agree that there is work to be done, but we've tried to really stabilize the system, and then now we can, from here, see some improvements. But having more doctors to keep those, these different care options open more frequently is key to it. Having, this clinical pathway I just talked about, the pathway for assessment, for doctors that are internationally trained is important. But so it's all woven very closely together. And so I take your point that there's work to be done, and we can look at different scheduling options and alternatives, but we are making some progress.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we're going to go to Jeffrey McDonald in Lower Sackville. And Jeffrey has a question about the office mandate for provincial employees to return to the office. Jeffrey, you can go ahead.
Hi there, thank you. Hi, Premier Houston. Thank you so much for having this town hall and for taking my question. I really appreciate it. I don't much have a question. I guess I more have a statement. I personally disagree with the decision to send provincial employees back into the office in a physical location. I think the traffic in HRM, I'm sure you've experienced it, is worse than ever. It's getting worse all the time. Public transit isn't improving. And I just think that it was a misstep to send those people back when they don't necessarily need to be there. I know there might be some certain exceptions, but in general, I'm sure that they were doing their work perfectly fine from home, and there was no need for them to go back into the office. So do you feel like that was the right choice? Do you feel like you can defend that choice to send them back? And I feel like as the Premier of Nova Scotia, you do have some sway in that decision. So I'm just wondering if you could give some commentary on whether or not you thought that was a good idea.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Appreciate you tuning in, and thanks for this important question. So, yes, we've asked a subset, a cohort of provincial employees to return to the office. I think it's the right decision for sure. Obviously, these would have been changes from the COVID times, and now it's just time for them to be back in the office. These employees are absolutely a critical component of the structure of government. And, the life in public service is about public service. So it's about putting the Nova Scotians that we are serving first and foremost. And I just believe that can be done more efficiently from the office. There's lots of studies on either side of it. But I think we're also seeing some major companies in the world, some of the huge tech companies who had employees working from home are now asking them to come back to the office as well. So there's a whole learning for younger employees from, people who have been there a little longer. The mentorship thing is really important. The discussions that happen sometimes, walking down the hall around the water cooler are just as important as the ones that happen on a formal Zoom, and oftentimes more important, I think. So it's kind of like somebody explained it to me. It would be like, to use a basketball analogy, like shooting hoops in your driveway by yourself, or being part of a team at practice. And I think that these are critical to the services that are provided to Nova Scotians, and I believe it was the right decision to ask them to come back to the office and work from the office.
Thank you, Premier. Our next question is from Brendan Meager in Middlesex. Brendan is the president of the Fire Chiefs and has a question about medical screening for firefighters. Brendan, please go ahead.
Hi there, Premier Houston, and thanks for taking my call. Just a correction, I'm president of the Firefighters Union in Halifax. And for people that don't know any of the history, I'll thank the Premier in this forum for the support he's given firefighters. He kept his word to us on expanding the list of presumptive occupational cancers that firefighters in Nova Scotia are now covered for. It was a really significant improvement, and the Premier has absolutely kept his word to us. The issue as this situation evolves, Mr. Premier, is that firefighters are having difficulty accessing proper screening for early detection. And I'm hoping to get your position. I know you have so many challenges in healthcare for every Nova Scotian, but the cancer rates for firefighters are disproportionately higher than for non-firefighters. And I'm hoping we can get a commitment to start some dialogue with the Department of Health to acknowledge the need for screening and to identify better guidelines that would work in conjunction with the national framework on occupational firefighter cancer.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you for the kind words and for everything you do. Obviously, we have great admiration for our firefighters here in this province. I have extremely deep gratitude for their commitment and service to our communities across the province. We know the last several years in particular have been really challenging times with devastating wildfires and flash floods and hurricanes and post-tropical storms and of course record-breaking snowfall. We know we turn to our fire service for all of those things in times of need, so thank them for that. The presumptive coverage, that's an important milestone, I think, of the recognition from government of the risks that our firefighters face. So I wasn't really aware of the difficulties getting that screening. It's certainly a discussion I'm happy to have and look forward to having. We need to make sure that we get it right, but great respect for our fire service, all first responders. I mean, we've really called on them in the last few years, and it's kind of striking for me that outside of just the day-to-day calls and responses that just happen, since I've been Premier just a little over 3 years, we've stood up our Provincial Coordination Centre to respond to a natural disaster 7 times, I think. And in the 10 years before that, it was like once. So we know the frequency and the severity is increasing. That's part of the thinking behind standing up the Nova Scotia Guard. So we know where the resources are and where the equipment is and where the people are and who has what training. And in an instant, we can kind of reach out for some help. But I wasn't really aware of the screening issues, but I certainly look forward to having a more detailed discussion about that, Brendan, with you and your team. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you. And next we're going to go to Hannah. Hannah has a question about the management of population growth in the province and balancing that with housing, healthcare, and other various services. Hannah, please go ahead.
Hi, Hannah, are you there? Maybe we can try somebody else. I'm happy to speak about population growth, though.
We will go to Anita in Bedford now, and has a question about doctors in Nova Scotia. Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, with the new doctors that will be coming into the province, with the requirements that are needed in order for them to work here, once they have that, is there any reason that would stop them from going into another province? Do we have a time frame that they have to stay in Nova Scotia, like a year, 2 years, before they can move on?
Yeah, thanks, Anita. This is a really important point, and you're speaking to return of service agreements, really. So a couple of things. The Cape Breton University Medical School has a return of service, and that's a medical school that's focused on Nova Scotian students. So it's people who, grew up here, want to be here, want to practice medicine here, and those students for sure have a return of service. I think in the new the assessment clinic, the International Medical Graduate Assessment Clinic that we just announced last week, with the potential for 45, that clinic does have a return of service attached to it as well. And the way that would essentially work is if you think about it, imagine if you're a doctor in Australia, as an example, possibly Canadian, grew up here but went to medical school down there and are looking for a path home. Imagine being, a practicing doctor and somebody saying, well, you can go to Nova Scotia and work under somebody for up to 18 months. And at the end of that, they may license you, or they may not. That's a big kind of, I'd say, risk for somebody to take during their career. So with the assessment clinic, we shorten that down. I mean, a 12-week assessment period, it could be shorter for somebody who shows the capabilities and the competencies much quicker. But you can almost do that. You can almost take vacation and go and do that for 12 weeks through that thing. So it takes a lot of risk out of the process for them. And at the end of that, it's the type of license that you get signed off on is limited to Nova Scotia for some period of time. So, yeah, there's absolutely protections in there to make sure that these initiatives are graduating and licensing doctors to practice medicine here in Nova Scotia. We can't keep graduating doctors to just leave right away. So there's lots of people that want to go to medical school. We all have the stories about somebody we know who's a 99 student or 98 student and can't get into what would have been the Dalhousie Medical School, so they go elsewhere. But they're capable people. So we're opening these paths for them to practice medicine here in Nova Scotia, but stay here in Nova Scotia. So it's a really important point that you make, and we're totally focused on these return of service agreements. Hope that helps.
Thank you. We're going to loop back to an immigration question here. Next, we have Cindy Royale, who has a question about increased immigration to Nova Scotia. Cindy, please go ahead.
Hi there. My question is just regarding I know that recently you had stood up and said that you were going to decline any more asylum seekers coming into the province, as well as some other provinces in Canada have done the same. And I'm just wondering where we're at with that process and in hopes that that is going to fall true. I know that right now there's so many new immigrants in the province that even my son had to go and take more training in order to get a minimum wage job. So I'm just wondering where we're at with all of this.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, for that. So first off, a couple of things. So on the asylum seeker question, this was where the federal government and Liberal Minister Mark Miller had this crazy idea that he was going to send 6,000 asylum seekers to Nova Scotia. Obviously, we are compassionate people. We're kind people. We do what we can. But we just can't accommodate 6,000 asylum seekers in Nova Scotia. So we said no. He stomped his feet a little bit, but I think he's kind of backed away from that. But to the broader question on population growth, our population is growing for sure, and it grows from a couple of main kind of streams, I would say. One, we have the immigration stream, and two, we have what we call the migration stream, where people move from other parts of Canada to Nova Scotia. And they may be somebody who grew up here, moved away, want to move home. They may be somebody who came here for university. Now they want to move back because they love it. There could be any number of reasons for that. So, but I just want to give you order of magnitude. These aren't exact numbers, but I just want to give you some perspective on the population growth and where it's coming from. So the province grew by somewhere in the range of 40,000 people. It's a significant number. So on the immigration stream, we're very focused on the immigration stream. We get an allotment, I guess, a quota from the federal government that we can have 6,000 immigrants. We're very focused on that 6,000 or 7,000. We're very focused on that stream. So to use that stream, we're focused on healthcare professionals, so people working in healthcare, and the skilled trades. Those are the two streams that we're focused on. So we need doctors, we need healthcare professionals. So we're saying we'll let them come in through that stream. We also need people in the skilled trades to help us build. So that's 6,000 or 7,000 people by the time they bring their partner or their family. I mean, it could be somewhere in the range of 20,000. So let's say the immigration stream is about 20,000. That means the other 20,000 are through the migration. They're people that are just moving here from other parts of Canada. And that's, I always often say to people, which grandmother or grandfather do you want to say to them that their grandchild can't move home because Nova Scotia is full? Like, we just can't. It's just not possible, right? So we're back to, the potential lever that we have is around the immigration stream. And I got to be honest, it's a tough one, right? We need doctors, we need nurses, we need pharmacists, we need healthcare professionals. So we try to focus that stream to fill some of those needs so we can provide healthcare. We need skilled trades, we need people building so we can attack the housing challenges we have. So, but just for perspective, the difference between the immigration and the migration, I think, is an important distinction for people. But certainly we need to make sure that the people here have opportunities for employment, for career advancement, for suitable housing, all those things. So I think long way of saying is I think the Liberals have backed away on the asylum seeker thing, although the Nova Scotia Liberals have been pretty vocal that they want those 6,000 asylum seekers here. But I think the federal Liberals have kind of got the message that it's just not on for us right now. It's not something we can do. But we'll continue to manage the immigration stream and focus on skilled trades and healthcare. But thank you for raising it. It's an important discussion. I really, really appreciate you raising it tonight.
Thank you, Premier. And before we go to the next question, just a reminder to those who did receive a call this evening and would like the opportunity to ask the Premier a question, now is the time to dial *3 to be added to the queue. All right, next we have Joan Churchill from Wolford. Joan, please go ahead with your question.
Yes, Premier, I applaud you for putting people back to work in their formal places rather than staying at home, because it helps everybody's mental health, and it helps to help one another to learn from other people. My big question is that I am very disappointed that your party, put forth 5% increase in renting of a property. We as renters are stressed, a lot of us, on fixed income, and 2% would be able to be managed by a lot of people, but 5% is just too much. And then to say it was going to be for 5 years is just putting more people having to choose whether they put their food on the table or whether they buy medication or whether they put up tents to live in. And I think that this is really deplorable, because I know where I rent, there's strips coming off the doors. There needs to be many repairs in the road coming in that's privately. You just gave the property owners big amount of money to fix put in new things, and we just here are very disappointed.
Well, thank you, Joan. And I completely sympathize. It's we're trying to strike the balance. So I know that the solution to the housing crisis is more housing. We need more construction. We need more apartments built. We need more houses built. So on the rental side, if we were to swing too far one way, let's say it was zero increase, right? So if it was a zero increase, would people still build apartments? So we have to kind of thread this needle where the construction still happens, but we're protecting tenants. So 5% was what we thought was the number that could find that balance. But I know on the other side of the equation, we hear from particularly smaller landlords who have a few units maybe, and maybe heat and lights are included. And look at what's happened to power rates. So they're struggling with the rents they're receiving to make it work from their side, and then maybe they sell the unit, and then we lose rental stock, right? Or they don't have the rental income to support the maintenance and upkeep, which is another, which you're referring to. You're seeing some of that in your own situation. So I completely sympathize with the way the world is with the cost of everything. For those that get a 5% increase in their rent, it's significant. I absolutely hear you on that, but we have to make sure that there's still construction happening, that there's still opportunities to create more housing. So look, these aren't easy things for sure. They're the reason my hair is gray. But I hear you. And I know the pressure it puts on you, but we're trying to find this balance. But it helps for me to hear your voice and the emotion in your voice as you explain that. So I certainly hear you, Joan.
Thank you. And next we're going to Maureen from Dartmouth. Maureen has a question around teacher recruitment and retention. Maureen, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Premier. Thanks for hosting the town hall this evening. This has been a great discussion so far. I'm a teacher in the Dartmouth area, and my question is, how are we going to be able to retain and attract teachers to the profession? There are several positions within HRCE that have not yet been filled, particularly in French immersion. Just wanted to know what the plan is moving forward to help attract teachers to the profession and to keep the ones that are already here.
Hi, Maureen. Thank you for what you do. I know it's you've certainly seen some changes in the classroom environment over your career, I'm sure. So a couple of things. So obviously the compensation and fair compensation is really important. So this surprises a lot of people, but since I've been Premier, so just a little over 3 years, we've negotiated almost 289 collective agreements. 289 in that period of time. So there's a lot for sure. We've approached all those negotiations as what I would say tough but fair, and trying to be respectful of the people who are delivering the services, like in this case teachers. So, we've done a couple of things very specifically. So we've looked at, I'll be frank, the discussion about whether to return to a teacher's college that they had in days gone by, it might be a more effective way to get people ready to teach and deliver education in the classroom. That's something people talk about. But what we have done is we've tried to work with the universities to make sure that those students that are studying education are getting a more practical education, more exposure to classrooms and learning from those that are in the classrooms, and trying to make sure that the time frame for that program is realistic, so they get the education that they need, but that they're not hanging around in a program for longer than they need. So we're trying to kind of find what's the best fit for that. So looking at how our teachers are educated, the next generation, that's part of it. Offering employment, I think we offer employment to every teacher that is graduating, for sure. There's a place for them in our system. That's another thing, so that they know that there's a home for them here in Nova Scotia. I think in the past it's been kind of tricky when they're finishing their program and might be a little slow with the offers coming. Maybe they get an offer from somewhere else, so they're gone because they have to take what's there. So we're trying to address that as well. And I know in French immersion in particular, there's pretty dramatic needs. So I would say a couple of approaches to that. So the compensation, the training of new teachers, and then just the accessibility of employment for them. So we'll continue to make sure that we invest in education. The discussions around safety in our schools is something we're always trying to work with teachers on. But I know Minister Drouin has visited in a bunch of schools, does a lot of town halls with teachers. We had the Ideas for Education program that was out there. We heard a lot of feedback from teachers and implemented quite a few of the ideas that came right from teachers. So we have, I really appreciate what you do. You're supporting our children and providing a good education, and we're trying to find ways to support you.
And next we're going to go to Pam Copeland in Hammonds Plains. Pam has a question around doctor training as well as doctor contracts. Pam, please go ahead.
Hi. Yes. Hi, Tim. Just want to focus because so many people are talking about the medical system, of course. And one of my questions was, there's Canadians that have been here, grown up here, that kind of thing. And how many of the people that are in training for the doctor positions are there currently from Canadians at this time? I'm sure there's a waiting list to get into it, but I would think that would be a major thing that people would like to know and how to get into it. And of those people that are in that system, when we're paying out all this money to everybody, that the contracts that I would assume are signed, is there something saying you stay here for 2 years in a certain area or anything like that, or is it just an open concept that's taking place? And also at the same time, of the doctors that are in the system, what is the ramp-up time to get them through the system? I'm sure there's a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term project happening here because things like this just can't happen overnight. If you could focus on that, that would be great.
Thanks, Pam. So, yes, again, let me just step back, I guess. So in this province, Dalhousie Medical School has been training doctors for quite some time. They have a certain number of seats, so a certain number of students for each year, and they have a certain number of those students would be Canadian, a certain number would be international, and within the Canadian, certainly we're always trying to get them to focus on Nova Scotia students to give Nova Scotians an opportunity. I'll just be frank, Dalhousie's been very difficult to get them to focus on the Nova Scotia healthcare system. They've been very focused on training doctors and less focused on training doctors for Nova Scotia. I'll just put that out there. But this is the reason that we are opening a medical school at Cape Breton University. Because when we spoke to Cape Breton University about this, we said, would you be willing to focus exclusively on Nova Scotia students and give them an opportunity to go to medical school? And would you be willing to make it a condition of those students that when they enter the Cape Breton University Medical School, they stay in Nova Scotia with the return of service? And they said absolutely. So I believe that the Cape Breton University Medical School in the as you say in the medium to longer term will end up educating a lot more doctors that stay here in Nova Scotia and want to be here in Nova Scotia. So that's one part of it. The international medical graduates, these are doctors. They're doctors in another country. And we want to make sure that they meet our standards, that they're up to stuff for Nova Scotia. We can't lower the standard of care, but we need to have an efficient method where we can assess people and see if they're if they have the capabilities and the competencies to practice medicine here in this province. So this is where we came up with this International Medical Graduate Assessment Clinic. This is, I can't even stress to you how significant of an advancement this is. The whole of North America is looking at this, what we've done here. And the college licensed doctors here in Nova Scotia, I challenge them to find a way where we can assess who would be appropriate candidates for licensure here in the province, and they came up with this, and we're working with them on this. But the same thing for those doctors who are accepted in to that International Medical Graduate Assessment Clinic, they will be required to sign a return of service and stay in Nova Scotia. I think that's 3 years on that one. So we're always focused on the longer term. My goal is to get. We're trying to dig out of a hole here. Okay, we're in a bad spot where healthcare was. And when we came on in 2021, we're pretty deep in the hole. We're digging our way out of the hole. There's lots of metrics and data points that would show improvement in the system, stabilization of the system. We're not going worse. We've kind of stabilized and are getting better. So that's the here and now. We're trying to deal with the here and now. But we're also, I feel an obligation to Nova Scotians to not just look at the here and now, one term, just focused on the term and don't worry. But I'm actually looking to the future. And the future looks a lot brighter. When we talk about 30 graduates a year from Cape Breton University, we talk about 45 doctors a year through the assessment clinic, 75 new doctors every single year. We're not going to be in this hole anymore once those are up and running. But we have to get through today. So how are we approaching today? We're making sure that we do everything we can to make sure that people have the access point that they can get into the healthcare system at the most appropriate place. We actually passed a law called the Patient Access to Care Act, which does a couple of things. But one of the things that it does is it lets healthcare professionals do what they're trained to do. Pharmacists are a good example. Pharmacists trained to do a lot of things. They've been very limited on which of those services they could provide in Nova Scotia. I often use the example, it would be like a plumber moving to Nova Scotia and somebody saying, congratulations, you can do plumbing in Nova Scotia, but you can't work on sinks. Like, just imagine how ridiculous that would be. That's kind of what we were doing with our pharmacists and nurse practitioners and lots of other healthcare professionals. So under the Patient Access to Care Act, we look at what people can do, and then we let them expand their scope. I call this the many hands philosophy. So under this many hands philosophy, right now today in this province, there are almost 1 million new primary care appointment opportunities every single year. 1 million new appointments that didn't exist before. Before our government, just didn't exist. They're through pharmacy clinics, mobile clinics, urgent treatment centers. I'm not even counting virtual care. Virtual care would be even more in addition to that. So we're trying to open up the pathways so that people can access the care that's appropriate for them. And a lot of times it's a pharmacist. So think about 1 million new appointment opportunities, 1 million, in a province of 1 million people. It's really significant. So yes, there's work to be done. We're dealing with the here and now, but looking to the future. I don't want 10 years from now this province to be back in the hole again. So we're trying to take steps today to keep us on a good pathway to the future. But your question about, I'm going to say, just the common senseness of making sure that if we are training doctors here in this province, then they should stay in this province. And there's enough people that want to go to medical school that would agree to, yes, I would go to medical school. Yes, I would stay in Nova Scotia and practice medicine. That's called a return of service agreement. And absolutely, at every place we can do that, we are doing that because Nova Scotians have a right to expect that that's the case. So this is all new. It didn't happen before our government, but our government has been totally focused on this, and we're getting to a better spot. We're not in the perfect spot yet. There's all kinds of examples where there's work to be done, but I just want you to know that we're doing the work and the needle is moving. But I really appreciate you just kind of focusing on the return of service part of it.
Right, and next we're going to go to George from Cumberland County. George would like to share a few words about his recent experience in the medical care system. George, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Premier.
Hi, George.
And I just wanted to make a comment or two, and if my voice is a problem, it's because I just had surgery last Thursday. Anyway, I was recently diagnosed with cancer in my neck. And I just want to say I had a tremendous response from the ENT offering in Cumberland County and ENT in Halifax. Dr. Corson and his staff were just outstanding, and the testing that I had to undergo, there were CT scans, PET scans, biopsies, MRIs, and they were just scheduled and completed within days. So Monday I came home from the 3B floor, the Centennial Building, and I just want to give a shout out to the people in that building. They were just tremendous. And the only problem I would say we had is for people outside of Halifax traveling in for appointments and the lack of parking. Other than that, everything is great.
Well, I'm awful happy to hear that, George. So really appreciate you sharing that, and certainly we'll pray for a speedy recovery for yourself as well. But I think this is. Thank you for sharing the story, because I think it's so important that people have confidence in the system, that the system will be there when you need it. We have incredible people working in our healthcare system that just go above and beyond every single day. It's a people business. Not everything's perfect, but the people working in healthcare, they care about Nova Scotians. And when you get into the system, you're going to get the very finest of care. There's no question about that. And part of my job with a number of the initiatives that we're making is just that people have the confidence. If you need an ambulance, you should call an ambulance, because 96% of the time it's going to get there quickly. There might be outliers, and we'll read about those and those negative experiences in the paper, but we don't want them to deter people from calling, because the system is there and it's there. Same thing with the emergency department. If you need emergency care and you go to the emergency department, we want you to do that, because the system is there and people are there that will care. And there'll be negative experiences that we hear about. It's a massive system. I use the ambulance situation is one that's pretty telling for me. There's over 800 ambulances called every single day in this province, day after day after day after day. And if you think about when is the last time that you heard about a negative experience, you read about or you heard about a negative experience? They happen, and everybody's is hurt, and when those happen, but for the vast majority of times, day after day, 800 times, the system works, and it's there to care for people. And when you get into this healthcare system, you're going to get good care. So thank you for sharing that, George, and we certainly pray for a speedy recovery. But really appreciate you reaching out tonight.
Thank you, Premier. And next we're going to Cheryl, who has a question about the carbon tax. Cheryl, go ahead.
Hey, Tim, just wondering what are you going to do to lower the carbon tax? Or how are you going to approach it?
Well, the federal carbon tax is an awful thing. It doesn't help preserve the planet. We all care about the planet. We all do what we can to preserve the planet, for sure. The carbon tax is not that. In a province like Nova Scotia, where we have to drive, you can put as many carbon taxes on, and all you do is just punish people who have to drive. We still have to drive, right? The thinking behind the Liberal government, the Liberal carbon tax, is that it would be so punitive that it would deter us from driving, in that example. Well, we can't. Most of this province, you can't put your child on the back of your bicycle and pedal them off to hockey practice. Most of this province, you're not hopping on the public transit subway to go somewhere. You're driving your car. So the carbon tax makes gas more expensive. It just hurts Nova Scotians. We have to heat our homes due to our climate. So we have urged the federal government to just get rid of it. Work with us on other alternatives. And the other alternatives in this province are, we have incredible potential in green energy. We have lots of offshore wind potential. We have tremendous potential for green hydrogen. So we've asked them to focus on those things that actually can make a difference, and just get rid of the carbon tax. So if I could get rid of it tomorrow, I would get rid of it tomorrow. Unfortunately, that's at the federal government level. So we continue to focus on trying to convince them to see a good pathway forward, Nova Scotians. But sure, if I could get rid of it, it would be gone because it makes no sense.
Thank you, Premier. That does bring this evening's conversation to an end. Thank you so much to everybody who joined, and have a great evening.
Thanks for joining us.